Okay, I think we'll get started. Thank you for joining. Firstly, hello to everybody. We've done a few of these sessions before, and thank you for joining us wherever you are. I know there's some people joining us not from Australia, so welcome and thank you on what is a pretty glorious winter's day here in Sydney. Very excited today. We've done a couple of these sessions before, but specifically excited today for a couple of reasons. One, the Attention Experts business and George, who I'll introduce in a second, is quite a unique and novel and growing and exciting business. And also very exciting because we're trying to demonstrate how we have moved beyond the sales and commercial area of DecidrOS into a different area of a business and solving some unique problems that are not just the sales and commercial area. So pretty excited about a couple of for a couple of specific reasons. I might just introduce myself for those of you that haven't joined us before or don't know much about the business. I'll introduce myself and I'll introduce Decidr just to summarize what we do. My name is Duncan Brett. I'm the COO of Decidr. The reality is that title means I wear quite a few hats in the business, but the largest is delivery. And we're going to talk exclusively today about delivery. And when I say delivery, I mean delivering our platform, which is what we are. We're an intelligence platform into businesses. So we have a delivery team, and we're going to talk a lot about that. We have a team, we call them forward deployed engineers, and we embed those people into businesses, and they spend a lot of time learning about businesses, capturing data, mapping data, and then mapping it to our platform. So what I talk about today is pretty much exclusively delivery, and we're going to get into the details of that. I'll also spend a minute just talking about the business, Decidr what we do. The reality is there is some ambiguity of what we do and we're in an ambiguous category. But to summarize it very high level, we do two things at Decidr. We build AI organizations. That's the first thing that we do. And secondly, those AI organizations will be part of an agentic graph. So we're building two things, AI organizations and an agentic graph. An AI organization, and the starting point of that is some of the things you will see today and maybe some of the things you've seen when we've done these before, focused on the sales and commercial areas of businesses. It's a transformation of your business with AI. We're not an AI tool. We are a transformation intelligence platform. So that is an AI organization. We get into your organization, we learn about your data and your tacit knowledge, and we start to build. The agentic graph is thousands of those AI organizations inside our ecosystem, communicating with each other, finding each other, and transacting with each other. This is where this is going. And that's a futuristic view, but it's a 2027 view. It's not too far off. So that's kind of what we do. The reality is this is very broad and very deep. And the aim of some of these sessions is to focus on a few areas to bring that to life. Today is the starting point. It's absolutely not the destination. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So that's me in the business. I'll just set the scene of where we are with AI in 2026 more generally. We've gone through a period towards the end of last year where AI had a trust problem, and I've kind of spoken quite publicly about this. That was born by the hundreds of podcasts, YouTube channels, links, LinkedIn posts, white papers, thought pieces that you will all have seen as CEOs and founders, and a little bit of mistrust and founders trying to cut through the hype versus the reality. We've moved on, I think, in 2026. The belief is there. The CEOs and founders we speak to are finding a way through the hype versus the reality. The belief is there. AI now in 2026 has an execution problem. An execution problem, I think it's a positive thing, is that founders and CEOs realize that they haven't done the foundation work. We're going to talk a lot today about the foundation work, which is a prerequisite work, which is the data and intelligence capture. And intelligence is not just data and systems and rows and columns, but it's actually tacit knowledge. And we're going to get into quite a bit of that and talk a bit about that in relation to attention experts and how important it is. So we've moved away from trust. The belief is there. The foundation work has not been done. And that's kind of the thesis of what we do. We put our team into businesses and we start learning about the business and we capture data, rows and columns, but we also capture tacit knowledge. And then we build the application layer on top of that, which is building things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So today is about setting the scene of what Decidr is. We've done that. I'm going to introduce George in a second. George is going to talk a little bit about his business because it is a very exciting business, an Aussie business which is growing globally. And we're very happy to be partnering with him and working through building his AI org. We're then going to go into a demonstration. We're going to show the platform. I'm going to talk over it. The reality of our platform is it's very broad and very deep, but I'm going to focus on three specific areas around connecting your intelligence, executive functions, and then the application layer, and show applications actually doing things inside a business. We're going to show some of the sales and commercial suite that we have, and we're also going to bridge to the operations area, which is some of the things we're trying to solve for George's business. And we're going to demonstrate how we're kind of moving horizontally. Yes, we generally start with sales and commercial, but with George, we started with operations, and we move on to the next part of the business and the next part of the business and the next. And along that path, or the end of that path, there is an AI organization that is part of an agentic graph. So that's kind of what we do. We are going to have time for Q&A. We do like questions and answers. We're very big on questions and answers. Please send them through as you listen, as things come into your head. We will get to them. My team will send them to me. If we don't get to your question, I can promise we will follow up. We do love questions and answers, so please ask away as we go. So I'm going to introduce George himself. I'm going to let him talk about the business because he can do a better job of me. But I will start by introducing George himself, the owner and founder of global social media and digital agency Attention Experts. Started in 2016, Australia's most awarded social media agency. George has worked on social media strategy, digital strategy, management, and analysis across 30 different industries with companies globally. And as growth director and founder, George is in charge of the overall growth of his business. A qualification in mathematics and finance, George has been asked by companies to help them with their digital strategies after he successfully built and sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies through social media between 2010 and 2016. George previously won the Outstanding Young Entrepreneur Award at the New South Wales Business Chamber Awards, and through Attention Experts has won multiple awards through such organisations as the Australian Marketing Institute, being recognised by Yahoo and various other publications as a leading digital agency. He's also been called to be an expert witness in court cases involving social media defamation and trademark infringement for the Victorian Supreme Court and the Australian Federal Supreme Court. He's a sought-after keynote speaker, presenter for industry groups, having spoken to over 30,000 people around the world since 2016, and conducts digital strategy sessions to government agencies, large NFPs, and multinationals. I'm nearly finished. This is quite a good one. George has also lectured on behalf of the Centre of Continuing Education at Sydney University. So I didn't use AI to write that, actually. I put it together myself. So very happy to have George as a customer. I might hand over to you, George. Please talk about the business. I know quite a lot about it. I think it'd be useful for the audience to know who you are as Attention Experts, what you do, types of businesses you work with, the challenges. But yeah, over to you to talk a bit about the business.
Thanks, Duncan. Yeah, and very excited to talk about the Decidr component later as well. The business Attention Experts been around 10 years, as you mentioned. How it started, as you mentioned, I sold a couple of companies using e-commerce and using data-driven strategies to build those e-commerce businesses. And my background is investment banking, so I never thought I'd end up with a digital agency. So I sort of fell into it because when I sold those companies, the second one got into the media, and I was being approached by a number of businesses, government agencies, to consult them on social media strategy in 2016. It was very new. 2016 was 4 years after Facebook had actually released paid ads. So the industry was like very new. We're basically dinosaurs in the industry, being 10 years old. And I was like, I might as well start an agency after I was consulting about 12 businesses. So we kicked off very quickly, built up a client portfolio, ended up implementing campaigns, not just advising, worked with companies like Channel 7, New South Wales government, worked on the Tokyo Olympics. And then from there, got a bit of notoriety and kept going. So we were predominantly a social media agency to begin with, social media strategy and social media implementation, predominantly around the performance piece. And then expanded into Dublin initially, after we expanded into Melbourne domestically. And then we launched our UK office in London in November 2024. And with that expansion, we came across the ability to hyperlocal advertising down to 100 square meters through putting together a proprietary relationship with a couple of suppliers, one being a satellite partner, another being an actual platform partner. And we're, as far as we know, the only agency in the world that's doing that. There's a couple of businesses doing that, but we're the only ones as an agency delivering this as a service globally at the moment. So it got us in front of companies and organisations like AC Milan, Aston Villa, we're Melbourne Victory's digital marketing partner, So doing a lot in sport, working with Western Bulldogs, Melbourne AFL as well. So yeah, a lot in sport, stadiums, events, conferencing. Just came back from Germany where I presented at a major conferencing exhibition called IMEX, where it's all the world's it's like a world's fair. All the countries come together and they present their convention centers and try to win events. And I presented there as well. And that space around hyperlocal advertising, where the right message at the right time in the right location, is really the the next 5 years of digital marketing, because this is where a lot of marketing teams and marketing issues within organizations having issues around engagement and this attention-less economy, where people have lower attention spans by the minute. And you were talking about before with AI, how people were easily influenced as well by authorities, quote unquote. So, so yeah, it's just about being cutting edge for us, very important. And the industry is moving at a rapid pace, much faster than a human can keep up with. And I think marketing is the bellwether it is like the indicator for the economy in a lot of ways. When companies start reducing marketing, it's a big indicator that there's something going on economically. So we're seeing that lately is there's economic uncertainty out there, and it's about having best practice strategies. How do we go to market with leading marketing strategies that people can actually get some results from or get performance from, rather than doing a lot of top of funnel stuff that is a lot of spend but not necessarily bringing people down the funnel. So yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your journey with AI. So we at Decidr spend a lot of time looking for innovators. We call them innovators who are early adopters of technology, understand that AI can be transformational. We're not selling an AI tool, we're selling complete business transformation. We spend a lot of time trying to get through to innovators. That's quite a subjective term, but it can be synthesized into a few things. Just tell us a little bit about attention experts. Like before we even engaged with Decidr, and we've been working for a few months now. You'd already started looking at AI. You'd already started implementing things into your business.
Yeah.
Just talk to me about the whether it was a light bulb moment, whether it was a process, some of the things that you started to experiment with.
Yeah. So before that happened, it was operationally very clear that running an agency is extremely complicated, much more than people realize. Like in a social media campaign, last count, 333 steps in 90 days, right? To execute a proper social media campaign that's going to perform. There's probably more than that now. That was the last count I did, and I stopped counting after that. It's a lot of steps. So if you miss one, it's like leaving the cheese out of a cheeseburger. You know what I mean? It's noticeable, right? So it's extremely complicated. It needs a lot of stakeholders internally to work together well and in an aligned process. And when you have creatives and analysts working together, this can become not a great match made in heaven. It becomes a challenge. So how do we get everyone on the same page and working with the same workflows, policies and administration to administer a campaign perfectly is a huge challenge, and every agency out there goes through massive challenges around this piece, not just us, but we've put a lot of focus on how do we deliver best practice operationally, because the product is what speaks volumes, and that's what's helped us grow the last 10 years. And how we administer campaigns is everything. So that was the first problem, and constantly working on that. AI came to the fore, obviously, and became apparent that it was something we had to work with. We worked with our insurer since 2023 first to see what it is that we need to do to get insured, to use AI in the business. And I think this is one thing a lot of businesses aren't considering, is liability around AI and making sure that you have the ability to be indemnified. Very important. There's been many cases, I'm sure a lot of businesses have heard, very, very senior companies out there producing work of AI and writing it off as their own. And this has led to court cases. So making sure that you are indemnified, that you aren't doing anything dodgy, that you're making sure that every AI is working with your business correctly, getting sign off on that from insurers. And then we went about mapping it out operationally. And what we did initially was with ChatGPT, we tried to map it out with GPTs. which we learnt the hard way with that. It was, the no frills version, I guess, trying to work out how to do it. And I think what it taught me was, how to get hands on with it and work it out. But I think talked about with the agentic map, that's essentially what we're trying to do across the organization. We need GPT here, GPT there, these talking to each other. This is how we're going to work it out. And so, that's how we were initially doing it. And we started trying to map that out and implement it beginning of last year and trying to implement mid last year. A lot of work. I reckon there was a month there where I had probably the whole month, like 12 hours sleep. It was just like going to bed at 5, going back to the office at 7, 8 o'clock, trying to work on getting the agents and the GPTs to work together and all that sort of thing, working at all hours. It was a bit nuts.
So that was the mapping piece, and it's quite an interesting. We're going to talk a little bit more about when we show the demonstration now about the mapping and the capturing of data. It was quite enlightening when we engaged with George in the first time that a lot of that information, a lot of that work, foundation work, I spoke very early about. Belief is there, but CEOs and founders realize they haven't done the foundation work. George had actually done quite a lot of that himself. So we've worked with other businesses where that hasn't been done, the mapping, the processes, the workflows, the tacit knowledge in team members' heads. George had actually done quite a lot of that already, so it was quite enlightening. That is extremely rare. But thank you for the information on attention expert.
Which I didn't know about. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't know that. I thought we were way behind, but it's I'm talking to companies at the moment as I become more interested in AI. No one's really there.
Yep.
It's interesting.
Yeah. No, it is resonating. I've mentioned this before, but Vicky Brady, who's the CEO of Telstra here in Australia, which is the largest telco here in Australia, for those of you that are not in Australia, was at an AI summit very recently in Sydney and spoke about the importance, and she was talking around AI transformation, but she spoke about the importance of human to human source is the word that she used. And basically she was saying the realization in an organization that is 33,000 employees, the amount of information that is in team members' heads. So it's not just rows and columns, it is how they actually process that rows and columns, what platform do they use, where do they go, sales, operations, everything. So it really resonates with people, and it's starting to become a big thing. So that's kind of the process that we go through with organizations. But I was just making the point that George had actually been along that path quite advanced already. So thank you. A little bit more information about Attention Experts. Great to celebrate a successful Aussie business that is a global business, but thank you for that. So what I might do now is we're going to show a demonstration of the platform. We're going to focus on a couple of areas, and the intention here is to show how we are solving problems in the sales and commercial sides of business, but we've moved on with Attention Experts to try and solve areas in the operation side of business, and that is our whole thesis. We are a horizontal platform that solves problems front of office, middle office, and back office. So if I think about sales and commercial, I think front office. If I think about operations, I think middle office. So that's kind of the intention. I like to tell stories and frame things. So before we get started with the platform, I'll frame it with a problem. And for those of you watching, listening, I will propose a problem, which is, let me ask you, if I was to ask you now, what does your pipeline look like? Just think about the amount of things that you would need to look at, the amount of questions you would need to ask to try and answer that problem. So what does your pipeline look at? You'd probably start by going to your CRM. You'd probably download a dashboard, look at a report. You would then maybe check a Slack channel. You might go and check emails. You might call a team member. You might then have a meeting. These are all quite common things. You might do all of those things. And at the end result might still be that you question the validity of the data, the accuracy of the insights, which is what it's all about. And ultimately, you as CEOs and founders, the buck stops with you. That's what you're responsible with. So we deal exclusively in the SMB space, businesses that are struggling with fragmented data, businesses that are struggling with no single source of truth, businesses that are struggling with trying to figure out how to get transformation with AI. So that's kind of a good framing of a problem. And as we talk through, we're going to show the platform now and a few areas. The reality is that this platform is very broad and very deep, and the focus and the intention here is to just focus on a few key areas to bring this to life. And it's what we think here at Decidr are the most important aspects of this, and that is connecting intelligence, executive functions, and the application layer. The application layer is actually doing things. So I'm going to talk through those things. I'm going to spend more time on the application layer. We're going to talk about sales and commercial, and then we're going to talk about operations, and we're going to show a couple of different businesses. The connecting intelligence piece, which I'll start with, is the foundation of everything. You can see with this organization, we've connected 4 applications: HubSpot, where their leads are; Shopify, where their products and services are, and customers and orders; and then Gmail and Google Workspace, G Drive, if you like, of where knowledge bases are and documents are. It really is the foundation of everything. Data flows in from those systems and it flows into OS. In this case, it's a CRM, it's an e-com platform, it's email, it's Google Drive, but it could be a myriad of things. We work with businesses that have got many, many different ERPs, not just one ERP. We've got businesses that work with multiple e-commerce platforms, fragmentation all over the place. The value in this section, we call it golden record, but single source of truth is kind of the most common used phrase. In this example of this business, they had 110,000 records across 2 different platforms: leads, sales. There was lots of duplication. We merged them into the OS platform with business rules that were written in conjunction with that business, and we merged 110,000 records into 60,000 records. And it's not too hard to understand how working with a deduplicated list of single source of truth of 60,000 records is way more valuable than trying to dedupe all those things. So that's part of the process. It's not necessarily where the ultimate end value is, but it's part of the foundation work that you have to go through. I'll talk about executive functions, which is the second area. Executive functions is the left-hand side of the screen there. Think about executive functions, which is our term, as places, folders where your data goes. Could be sales, could be vendors, could be finance. Think about it as a map. We call it schema. Think about it as a floor plan of a building, deciding where the bathroom goes, where the kitchen goes. We have to decide where your data, your intelligence goes inside our ecosystem. And a couple of very small examples is attention experts would call their customers customers. We had a healthcare customer that would call their customers patients. We have a professional services business in the financial services space that calls their customers clients. That's quite a unique, like atomic level example of deciding where that data goes. Shopify is a good example because Shopify, the platform, determines all the interactions with that platform as customers. That's not actually true at the business level. A customer is somebody who's made a transaction. So a very, very important piece. The value in that section, executive functions, is you can't automate what you haven't mapped. And it's a statement I use probably quite a lot. AI is only good at doing the things it needs to do if it's connected to the right data systems and intelligence it needs to do those things. And that's what executive functions do. That's what that mapping piece does. I'll now move on to the third area, which is applications/functionality. It's where the value is. It's the application layer on top. And I'm going to talk through 4 specific applications, doing things on the sales and commercial areas of business: ICP, prospect, proposal, and outreach. I'll start with ICP, which is ideal customer profile. Majority of businesses that we work with, they have a definition of their ICP. Some do not. We have an ICP app that will define your ICP based on your products and services because we've synced those into OS. It will define the fit of your products and services to your ICP, and in this example, it will show that there's only 4 prospects that match your ICP. We then move on to the prospect app, which is a second app that can help you find more prospects. And in this example, you can see that it's found 343 different or new prospects. It sucks them into OS. And then we move on to the proposal application, which is what you're seeing now. The proposal application in this example is a business that's spending 3 hours generating these proposals for each business. Somebody in the business was researching the prospect. Somebody in the business was working out what category they're in, how big they are, what revenue they do. Somebody else was going to look at the product suite. They've got 2,000 products, 33,000 SKUs. The design team is then building a proposal. We've synced all that data in and merged all that intelligence, including the tacit knowledge, and we've taken a 3-hour process down to 10 seconds. And the team that's operating that is now dealing with closing the proposals rather than actually making the proposals. And then the final application is outreach, which is what you're looking at now. It's an application that enables you to connect all those things together using a chat function, which is a functionality of the OS platform, to write a bespoke message to that prospect. The proposal that's been generated by the proposal generator is included in the email, and then that message goes out to that prospect. These are all things that were being done manually before, without a proposal, trying to contact a prospect to see if they wanted a proposal. The process we went through our 30-day discovery program connected the data, connected the intelligence, and this is an example of these things working together. I use the phrase publicly about grease versus cogs. Grease is adding 10% to your team and using fragmented AI tools. This is cogs connecting things together and actually workflows at the end of them. So ICP, prospect, proposal, outreach. They're just 4 applications of our sales and commercial suite, which are solving problems for businesses today. I'll make a bridge now to the operations side of things, and this is an attempt to illustrate how we're moving horizontally and working specifically with attention experts. And I'll make the point again that George and the attention experts team had already done quite a lot of work of thinking about how their business looks like with transformation with AI, expansion with AI, growth with AI, and it was quite enlightening to see a lot of that work they'd already done. A lot of the documentation work I spoke about, the tacit knowledge, had actually already been done. They were using, as George said, ChatGPT, a few other tools outside of the business, fair amount of fragmentation, some efficiency being added to the business, absolutely, but still separate tools, fragmentation. And George is very open to us that when we engaged, that his starting point, and he spoke about lost opportunity, I think is the phrase that he used quite a lot, was he wanted to start on the operations side of the business and not the sales and commercial side of the business. So all the things that you've seen are absolutely going to be embedded into the attention experts business, but George was very open that he wanted to start with the operations side of the business, and he kind of spoke about that very openly. So, and as a foundation customer, the problem for us was to solve that problem and work on the operations side of things for George as the starting point rather than the sales and commercial. So it's an illustration of how we're kind of moving horizontally and solving problems in a different area of the business. So we embedded our team into George's business. I spoke earlier about forward deployed engineers. We embedded our team into George's business, lots of questions and answers. And some of that tacit knowledge and data and rows and columns of data that George had already started to document and write down, the philosophy of his business, how the team members are operating things and doing things now. We went through that process of learning all that ourselves and getting that into the OS platform, capturing the data, mapping the data through that executive function area that I spoke about, and then obviously getting all that into OS. It's true to say that George had already gone down the path of exploring AI, and he'd taken some of the operational side of some of the work that the team are doing from hours to minutes, and we've kind of moved that from hours to seconds. The value is that it's kind of now all within the ecosystem OS. It will all be connected to the further intelligence of the business, and it will all be connected to the further application layer of the sales and commercial. So it's kind of a big move. Where this is going, and you saw the agent builder actually doing some of the operations work on George's business. This will manifest itself as a specific reporting app inside OS, where the operations team inside George's business, and he spoke very openly about the lost opportunity cost. It will be a specific application in OS. It's connected to the intelligence of the business, which is not just rows and columns. It's tacit knowledge. It's the philosophy of the business, and obviously the use cases that it's connected to all the sales and commercial areas of the business as well. And then the same with our other foundation businesses, we will move on to another area of the business and another area of the business with attention experts. And in time, attention experts will be an AI organization, and it will be part of our agentic graph. In that demo, we showed you 2 businesses. So there was a B2B e-commerce business, which is product-based, and we showed you an agent builder working on the attention experts operation side. Just to illustrate the agentic graph, these 2 businesses are now in the OS, and there is an opportunity for the ICP application to actually connect these 2 businesses, which will be the inside the agentic graph, and know based on the knowledge base of the merchant business, which is what we showed on the B2B side, it knows that attention experts is in their ICP. So it can build a bespoke proposal for attention experts because it knows the products and services, it knows what industry attention experts it's in, and it can send George or somebody in his team, whoever that is, a proposal on brand with the right products, with the right quantity, because it knows how big the attention experts business is. And you don't get a proposal for $1 million or $10. It knows the size of the business. It knows what they operate in. So you get a bespoke proposal. And this is the idea of this agentic graph. Thousands of businesses finding each other, communicating with each other, and transacting with each other. That's kind of what we're working on. And that's kind of the holy grail vision, which we're working on, which is connecting these businesses. So I hope that kind of brought things to life. I'll make the point again that this is very broad and very deep, but it was just 3 areas to try and illustrate what we're doing. Connecting your intelligence is the foundation work of everything. Executive functions is the mapping we do of your intelligence to our platform. And then the application layer, which is a small part of everything, which is where all the value is. And that's actually things, performing actions in your business, increasing revenue, reducing cost. I might pause there for a second. I might hand over to George again. George's team is using the agent builder. This is fairly nascent. This is, again, a journey, and this is a starting point. This is definitely not a destination, but it might be worth, George, just talking a little bit about the team, how they're using it, how it's changed from what it was before, where it is now, where it's going. It'd be good to just kind of bring it to life a bit.
Yeah. Should I talk about the onboarding
Yes,
and
yeah,
bleeding into
yeah,
how we've,
definitely. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I might just start with the onboarding process because, and the opportunity costs that I brought up with Decidr when I first started talking with Decidr, how important that opportunity cost was to us because we're already on our journey with AI and coming on with a partner in AI, we wanted to make sure that journey either sped up or was higher quality, right? So we didn't want to lose on that journey because we know how fast it's moving. So if we end up behind by coming on with a partner that's not aligned with us, then we're going to end up if we're off track in 12 months, it's a huge opportunity cost. So the onboarding process started, with initial mapping. We had the GPTs that we wanted, and it was great working with yourself, Duncan, and Ben, and just working with you guys on this is what we want. Tacit knowledge wasn't a term I knew before, but I knew that we needed to download our heads into AI and keep it secure. All that IP, how do we keep that secure? How do we make sure that our intellectual property, the knowledge that we've developed, is our knowledge? That's super important. So that onboarding process really took that into account. I made that very clear. And, while Decidr were working on their platform, gratefully started working on the operations side of things with us as well. Because we'd already had success on the sales side. We don't need more help there. What we need to do is minimize risk and increase efficiency. So, so that's what the whole point of coming on with Decidr was in the first place. So, onboarding process mapped all that out, and then working to get our first agent live, which helps our analytics team look more in depth into our campaigns and uses our playbook, our IP to develop that and give them the output of that is to give them the knowledge very quickly. So something that would have taken pre-AI probably about an hour, an hour and a half, probably up to more complicated clients, probably 2 hours. With ChatGPT reduced down to around 30 minutes. We've decided as now instant, right?
Yep.
So that was one of the surprising things actually when we released that, because before with ChatGPT we have to go through Make, then the agents have to go through all the knowledge and the playbooks and figure it all out, come back with the output, and also ingest our spreadsheets and various data sources. That would take 20 minutes. So it would say on ChatGPT, come back in 20 minutes, we'll have the data for you, and then we input the code, and the code will give us that output. With this agent now, it's instant. It just straight away. So very impressive. And that's definitely helped immensely with efficiency.
Good. Full transparency. I like to talk about challenges, and I think people like to hear about that this is not a flicking a switch from day one and value is added. I think the world has moved on a little bit to understand that getting value and business transformation from AI is not an overnight success. So I asked our forward deployed engineer who you spoke about to send me a list of things that are challenges, because I think the audience would like to hear. So and this is hard work. This is capturing data, mapping data. But we are not an AI tool. We're focused on business transformation. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. One is complex org structure, of which Attention Experts is. And George mentioned that at the very start. It's a complex business. Operationally, it's complex. We had to go through that process to understand and learn what that looks like. There is no AI tool, there is no AI platform that you can plug into your business and it can learn all your information, tacit information, data in rows and columns quickly, overnight, and get value from day one. And that's absolutely true. So we have to go through that process to understand the organization, talk to various people, capture the data, intelligence, which is data, rows and columns, but it's also tacit knowledge. George was very open about the philosophy of his business, very deep intense time to actually capture that and learn it. There was quite a lot of data ingest complexities. So how George was operating this now with some fragmented tools. There was operational challenges with that. Yes, he'd already made some improvements in efficiency, but actually repeating that process inside the OS, it was an actual challenge itself to get data in, make sure where the data goes in the right place. I spoke about mapping in that executive function section. It's actually quite a complex piece. And then IP philosophy that needed to be condensed. That's the point around George's mention of a lot of the information he'd already started to go through and map himself. We had to go through the process of learning that and obviously deciding where it goes, condensing it down into the platform to make sure the end agent, of which looked very simplified in the demo, behind the scenes, there is a lot of complexity going on there. There's a lot of documents that have been uploaded. There is a deep knowledge base on George's business, his tacit knowledge, how he works operationally now. And the reality is that this, to get from where we were to now and beyond, is a challenge, but that's what we work with. And that's what our forward deployed engineers do. We embed them in your business. They learn about your business. They spend an inordinate amount of time capturing data and mapping data. And then the application layer is on top. The application layer is actually the final piece. It's where all the value is. But if you don't do the foundation work, which is capturing and mapping, there is no value at the end point. So I think it's just worth illustrating those. But those challenges is what we take on, and we solve those problems for businesses. In interest of time, I might move on to Q&A. George, there's probably a few. My team have sent me some of the questions that you guys have been asking. Looks like there's some on the business. There's also some for George. I'll start with one on Decidr. The question is, you have mentioned intelligence, IP, tacit knowledge, data, customer. These are all highly sensitive pieces of information. Can you talk about data security and privacy? What is your approach? Okay, so it's probably the second most popular question we get after where do we start is data privacy. How do you approach it? Yes, in George's case, we did speak a lot about tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is how he does things. His IP, obviously, he would not want any of that information being shared by any other business, never mind in just his space, but any other organization. We deal with it. Our approach is 3 words: sovereignty, governance, and inspectability. There's probably a separate session we can do on this alone, but we've kind of spoken publicly about this. The sovereignty piece is a very topical thing at the moment. Sovereignty means, if you think about a guardrail around your information, so is that information being leaked? Our point is that any of that IP, and I use George's business, is inside the DecidrOS platform. It's not been leaked back out onto an LLM. The LLM is not being trained on George's IP, which is not true in a case if you're using your own fragmented AI kind of retail tools. So that's sovereignty. Governance is our approach to data generally. If you go on our website, there is a trust center. We are a publicly listed business. So we have a very strong approach of how we approach data security. So if you go to our website, you can see the trust center, the governance that we have, SOC 1, SOC 2, all that details. Inspectability is quite a big one because within the platform itself, you can see what model has been used. It is true that we are model agnostic, but you can see what model has been used, and you can actually see the traceability and the audit trail of what that model is doing in terms of the task level, rolled up to the agent level, rolled up to the application layer. So it's not a black box. It's very inspectable at any one time. Everything's auditable, everything's seeing, everything can be seen, what can be done down to the task level of the individual agent. So some of those applications we showed in the demo, there is an audit trail of the different tasks that those are doing that you can go into and you can inspect and you can see what it's doing, and it's accessible any time. So sovereignty, governance and inspectability is a big one for us. We've done a recent partnership that has announced to the market with an Australian business to talk about our strength in sovereignty. Data's all hosted in Australia. If you're an Australian business with AWS, none of your information in your instance goes to any other instance. So we have a very strong approach to it, but there's probably a separate session we can do on that. A question for you, George. Can you talk a little bit what you deemed was your starting point? I think that's the operations side of the business, and that George is very open, so I'll kind of answer that for you. Another one is, okay, what would you say to a CEO listening who's still on the fence about making this kind of move?
Oh, well, you have to do it. Your hands are tied. I don't know what industry you're in, but look, it's an AI world. You got to bend and stretch with it. How you do that is really about putting those key markers that are important to your organization first and working out how do I minimize risk and increase efficiency with AI. So look at the areas in your business that you want to do that first as your quick wins, and then come to a really good partner to help you with that. Map it all out, work with you in implementation, you need an expert to help to work alongside you to do it. There's no way you can bring this in-house and try to do it yourself. You're going to end up wasting money and taking the wrong actions that will end up putting you in a very dark space in the 18 months' time. You want to work with people who are at the forefront and using best practice and have a backing of a team and everything that are living and breathing this every day, because the space is super fast moving. It changes every day. So, but to answer your question, you have to do it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here right now. It's undeniable. Like if you're not doing it, what's the risk for your organization in 12 to 18 months where the world is rapidly moving towards an AI world?
We're closely running out of time, but there is one question I'm going to get to, and then we'll wrap it up for you guys on the webinar. Somebody's asked, how is Decidr different? OpenAI and Anthropic have both moved to connecting business tools. What makes Decidr different? So we get asked this quite a lot as well. I will say that the biggest differentiation I would say is, yes, they are great tools, and we speak we're promoters of those tools, and we use those tools, quite frankly, but they are tools. Decidr focuses very strongly on business transformation. Okay, so we go in and we learn about your business very deeply, and then we start with front of office, we move on to middle office, back office. So we're focused on business transformation. We're not an AI tool. I spoke about grease versus cogs, and I've spoken about this publicly before. We see AI tools as adding grease to your organization, and that's a very good thing. So are you focused on making your team 10% faster? That's great, and it's probably where most people have started. Or are you interested in COGS, which is connecting multiple agents together that acts on your business intelligence, that are performing actions in your business? So we speak about this a lot, which they are tools, and we are business transformation. And I will make the point that the tools are amazing. They're in human technology. They understand the most of human history about programming, law, history, but do they understand the context of your business? And can they automate some of the workflows and processes in your business? And I would ask you guys that question. So we're focused on business transformation. And in order to do that, you need a platform that understands your business, which is your business intelligence.
Yeah, I'll just make a point on that because that's something that's come up, and I've also asked that question, but been challenged to me is why aren't we just using, Claude or whatever? The thing is, like, there's a difference between an organization being an AI organization that's really using AI to enhance the output of its staff and the organization as a whole, or just using AI to automate and take over past activities that you're doing. You've really got to look at it holistically across the whole organization, how it connects. These tools are helping, they're fantastic. They help in efficiency with certain streams of your business, but they don't connect it all together. And then on top of that, the tacit knowledge on top is everything for your organization. So I think it's a very simplistic view to say, yeah, we should just use Claude, Cowork, or just use some of these tools that ChatGPT have or Gemini or whatever. And they all have their benefits, but putting them all together holistically, getting them to work together and work with your IP that you've developed and the IP that you've created as an asset for your business amongst it all is the true value of putting AI into your organization, right? So I encourage organizations to look at it from that viewpoint, to look at it a lot more deeper than just putting in tools that are going to save time and efficiency. That boat is going to be very hard to turn around in a couple of years when everyone else is looking at it more holistically, and you potentially save some man hours and so on, but then you've got to look across the whole organization and get them all to work together. That's going to be a big job in a couple of years' time. So really look at it from that viewpoint.
All right, thank you. We are out of time. Firstly, thank you, George. It's about the customer always, which is our overarching statement. George is a customer, so very excited about these sessions. Very successful Aussie business, which we're very proud of. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. If I didn't get to your question, I promise we will follow up. I'd like to leave you with one thing, which is the number one question we get asked, I mentioned, was where do we start? We have a program called an AI roadmap, which is where everybody needs to start. It's our team inside your business, mapping your data, capturing your data, looking at all the AI initiatives you could be doing, looking at the challenges and the risks and the approach and the potential ROI of all those things, and telling you where to start. That's your starting point. The foundation work, which I mentioned that most CEOs and founders have not done. That's your starting point. Reach out to us for more information. Thank you for joining us. If we didn't get to your question, we will follow up, I promise. But thank you, and wherever you are, enjoy your day. Thank you.